The golden hour settled over the Kansas prairie like a gentle blanket, painting the endless grassland in shades of amber and honey. Sarah Miller knelt beside her small vegetable garden, her weathered hands working the dry soil with practiced patience. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows from their modest homestead toward the rolling hills beyond. Behind her, the old wooden cabin stood weathered but sturdy, its tin roof catching the last rays of daylight. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimney, carrying the scent of beans and cornbread into the evening air. It was a simple life, made harder by the passing of her husband Thomas 3 winters past, but it was theirs. "Mama, look what I found," called out her youngest 6-year-old Emma, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she ran through the tall grass. She clutched her worn teddy bear in one arm and held up a collection of smooth river stones in her free hand. "Those are beautiful, sweetheart," Sarah said, brushing the dirt from her apron as she stood. Her back ached from the long day's work, but she smiled as Emma arranged her treasures on the cabin's front steps. 8-year-old Ben emerged from behind the barn, dragging a small bucket of water he'd drawn from the well. His serious face, so much like his father's, showed the weight of responsibility he'd shouldered since becoming the man of the house. "Mama, I finished the evening chores," he announced with quiet pride. "Thank you, Ben. You're such a good helper." Sarah's heart ached, watching her son grow up too fast, but she was grateful for his steady presence. The family's daily routine continued in comfortable rhythm. Sarah had learned to stretch every penny, every grain of wheat, every drop of milk. From their one remaining cow, the bank had been patient since Thomas died, but she knew their kindness wouldn't last forever. The mortgage payments grew heavier each month, like stones in her pockets. As the children played near the cabin, Sarah noticed something moving in the distance. A dark shape against the golden grass, too large to be a deer, too still to be a buffalo. She squinted, shading her eyes with her hand. "Children, come inside," she called softly. But Emma and Ben had already seen the figure too. As they watched, the shape became clearer. A man on horseback, riding slowly, unsteadily. Even from far away, Sarah could tell something was wrong. The rider swayed in his saddle, and his horse moved with the cautious gait of an animal carrying precious cargo. The horse drew closer, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The rider was slumped forward, his clothes torn and stained dark with what could only be blood. His hat had fallen away, revealing dark hair matted with sweat and dust. "Ben, take Emma inside," Sarah ordered, but her children remained frozen. Watching the drama unfold, the horse stopped just yards from their cabin, as if it knew this was a place of safety. The rider tried to lift his head, tried to speak, but the effort proved too much. He slid from the saddle and collapsed onto the grass with a soft thud that seemed to echo across the prairie. Sarah rushed forward, her maternal instincts overriding any fear. The man was young, perhaps 30, with strong features beneath the dust and exhaustion. His clothes, though blood-stained and torn, were well made. Good leather boots, quality fabric, silver buttons that caught the dying light. "Mr. Can you hear me?" Sarah knelt beside him, pressing her fingers to his wrist. His pulse was weak but steady. Blood seeped from a wound in his shoulder, and his breathing was shallow. "Mama, is he dead?" Emma whispered, creeping closer despite her mother's earlier command. "No, sweetheart, but he's hurt badly. Ben, bring me clean water and those old sheets from the trunk. Emma, fetch my sewing basket." The children sprang into action, their fear replaced by the urgent need to help. Sarah had delivered babies, tended sick neighbors, and nursed her own husband through his final illness. She knew how to fight death when it came calling. Working by lamplight as darkness fell, Sarah cleaned the stranger's wounds with gentle efficiency. The bullet had passed through his shoulder cleanly, missing anything vital. Fever burned in his skin, but his breathing grew steadier as she worked. "Who do you think he is?" Ben asked, helping hold the lamp steady as his mother stitched. "I don't know, son, but he needed help, and we have it to give." For 3 days, the stranger drifted between consciousness and fever dreams. Sarah took turns with Ben keeping watch, spooning broth between his lips when he could swallow, cooling his brow with damp cloths when the fever raged highest. On the 4th morning, as Sarah sat mending by his bedside, the man's eyes opened, clear, green eyes that took in the humble cabin, the simple furnishings, the woman in her worn dress watching over him. Where am I?" His voice was rough from disuse. "Safe," Sarah said simply. "I'm Sarah Miller. These are my children, Ben and Emma." The man tried to sit up, winced, and settled back against the pillows Sarah had arranged for him. My name is Jonathan McKenzie." He paused, as if deciding how much to reveal. "I was traveling through when I ran into some trouble." Sarah nodded, asking no questions. In this hard land, a person's past was their own business. Over the following days, as Jonathan grew stronger, he proved to be gentle with the children and grateful for every kindness. He played quiet games with Emma, teaching her to braid grass into patterns. He showed Ben how to whittle wood into small toys, his skilled hands moving despite the healing shoulder. "You've been so kind," he said one evening, as Sarah served him soup. "I don't know how to thank you." No thanks needed, Sarah replied. Anyone would have done the same. Jonathan's smile was sad. I'm afraid that's not true. Not everyone has your heart. As the week passed, Sarah found herself looking forward to Jonathan's company. He had an easy way about him, a gentleness that reminded her of Thomas but felt entirely his own. He told stories of places beyond the prairie, making Emma giggle, and Ben's eyes grow wide with wonder. But Sarah also noticed things, the quality of his hidden belongings, the way he sometimes stared at the horizon as if weighing difficult decisions, the careful way he avoided certain questions about where he'd come from. On the 8th morning, Jonathan appeared at the kitchen table, fully dressed, his few possessions gathered. I need to be moving on, he said quietly. I've imposed on your hospitality too long. Sarah felt a strange pang of loss but nodded. Your shoulder needs more time to heal. It'll hold. Jonathan reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather pouch. I want to give you something for your trouble. That's not necessary, please. Jonathan's voice was firm. Let me do this one thing. He poured the contents of the pouch onto the table. Gold coins scattered across the worn wood, more money than Sarah had seen in her entire life. Emma gasped, and Ben's eyes went round as saucers. I can't take this, Sarah whispered. Jonathan smiled, and for the first time since he'd arrived, it reached his eyes completely. My name is Jonathan Mackenzie. I own 3 cattle ranches in Colorado, 2 silver mines in Nevada, and more land than I know what to do with. He gestured around the humble cabin. But in 8 days here, you've given me something I'd forgotten existed. Kindness without expectation. Care without judgment. A family's love. Sarah stared at him, understanding dawning slowly. This money will save your farm, give your children schooling, let you live without worry. Jonathan stood, moving carefully, but steadily, and maybe, when my business out there is finished, I could come back. Not as a stranger needing help, but as a friend who's found his way home. Sarah looked at her children, at Ben's serious face breaking into the first real smile she'd seen since his father died, at Emma clutching her teddy bear and staring at the golden coins like they were fallen stars. We'll be here, Sarah said, softly, we'll be waiting. As Jonathan rode away into the morning sun, Sarah stood in her doorway with her children beside her. The prairie stretched endlessly before them, but for the first time in 3 years, it felt full of possibility rather than hardship. Emma tugged at her mother's skirt. Mama, will he really come back? Sarah smiled, watching the distant figure, until it disappeared over the rolling hills. I believe he will. Sweetheart, good people always find their way home. The golden hour was beginning again, painting the grassland in shades of promise and hope. And in the simple cabin on the Kansas prairie, a family counted their blessings and dreamed of better days ahead.